the kind of headline any politician dreams of. There it was in the Boston Globe. Internal poll puts Walsh favorability at 74%. That was just a couple of weeks ago, and it came after a few months of some other headlines that Mayor Marty Walsh probably would have preferred not to see, but he apparently got past them relatively unscathed. Let's see what he thinks. Mr. Mayor, it's good to see you.
Thank you. Thanks
So
for
have
having
you identified each of the 26%? Has your staff identified who the negatives are?
You know, we're trying to find out who they are, and we'll track them down.
Then you'll take it from there.
No, you know, I get the credit for the number, but it's really the people that work with me. They're doing an incredible job, I think, in the city. Everyone seems to be pretty happy in the city, and we just want to continue to move the city forward.
Did you watch the debate last night?
I watched part of it.
What'd you think?
I thought that it was kind of funny watching Pence trying to explain and apologize and explain what Donald Trump stands for and who he is and what he is. I didn't go too much into it because after a while it's just the same rhetoric, and I didn't.
You don't think Kane was a little annoying in his presentation and his interruptions and that sort of thing?
And
you know, presentation matters.
Yeah, you and I think, spoke off camera. Kane was somebody he wasn't. And I think it would have been better for him to be just the person that he is, the people that love him in his district as a mayor and as a governor.
So you told us on our first inaugural broadcast on Boston Public Radio from the Boston Public Library, and thanks for your help with that, I should say, by the way. You told us that for the Clinton campaign, you're going to Ohio and Pennsylvania to talk to union workers.
Yeah,
is that right?
At the end of the month, I'm going to be going to Pennsylvania, and I'm going to Ohio. Hasn't been booked yet, and I'm going up to New Hampshire, not this Saturday, but next Saturday.
What's the message?
Just talk to them about the importance of the differences in the candidates. I mean, you have one candidate that supports workers' rights and is trying to build the economy and build infrastructure. You have another candidate that doesn't have a plan, that clearly thinks bankruptcy is part of the law, so we should take advantage of it by putting companies out of business and making billions of dollars and not paying federal taxes.
Well, speaking of not paying federal taxes, though, but so one of those union workers raises their hand and says, okay, I don't like it that Trump is not paying his taxes, but you celebrated a company coming to town that has elevated tax avoidance to an art form. General Electric didn't pay federal taxes on billions of profits in years. Why is it okay for them and not okay for Donald Trump?
Well, part of General Electric, this was before I was the mayor of Boston, so we'll fix that. They're paying taxes now when they come to the city of Boston, and we are going to be working with them. But Donald Trump is running for president of the United States of America, and he's talking about how he's going to move our economy forward, and he's proud of the fact that he didn't pay federal income tax and federal taxes to this country, meanwhile shipping jobs overseas. Listen, he can do all of that, but come up with an answer for it, not saying I'm proud of it and I took advantage of the law.
Can we talk body cameras? It was a torturous route to getting to this pilot program with 100. Ultimately, a judge had to order that the commissioner had the power to unilaterally implement when there were no volunteers. Commissioner was on a radio show a couple of weeks ago, Commissioner Evans, and said, and I'm paraphrasing, if the pilot goes as planned after 6 months is over and the union does not agree to a permanent program, he would use the so-called commissioner statute to unilaterally implement body cameras for everybody. Would he have your support if he did that?
I mean, yeah, if we decide to go full body camera in the city, he absolutely does have my support.
Why would you not?
I think we have to see what the body camera pilot program produces and how it works. And I think that we're about 2 months into it now. I think we're about 7 or 8 weeks into it. So in a few weeks, we'll be able to have a little assessment, see how they're working, see how we move forward. You know, building trust in the community is by getting out of the car and talking to the police. Body cameras have information on film if something were to happen. It's going to cost the city, the taxpayers of Boston, about $8 million to institute a full body camera program across the city of Boston on the technology, not including what we pay the police officers. So we're going to take all that into account.
So it's possible the cost alone, even if the pilot goes well, might preclude a full implementation?
I don't know if it'll fully preclude it. I mean, we have to look and see how the pilot works and what information. It's really about the information we gather on this thing, on the body cameras and how it's working.
But if it goes, just so I'm clear, but if it goes well and the union still doesn't agree, you would support your commissioner unilaterally implement.
If we feel that we need to have a full implementation of body camera program, we will move that in that direction.
Even if the union doesn't buy it?
We will be moving in that direction.
You know, speaking of community outreach, the commissioner was upset. You were upset by a unanimous SJC, Supreme Judicial Court decision the other day, talking about how it is, and I'm paraphrasing, that it is reasonable for, and this is based on data, again, before you and Commissioner Evans, to reasonable for a black man to move away from a police officer, not because he or she is likely to be guilty, but because they have reason to fear that police officer based upon history in the city. What's your reaction?
Well, I think the case was actually a car that was pulled over, and there was guns, I believe a gun found in the car, and the judge threw it out, and I got concerned about that particular case. And I think that, again, what we're doing here in the city of Boston is building relationships and building trust, and we have to continue to do that. I think that that's the way we're going to be able to really do proper policing in the city. There's a lot of concern around America between police and particularly communities of color, and particularly men, black men, Latino men around the country. We have to do a better job around the country, but in Boston every day at building that trust.
But when it's someone, I'm sorry I didn't have this before, such an individual, black man, when approached by the police, might just as easily be motivated by the desire to avoid the recurring indignity of being racially profiled as by the desire to hide criminal activity. Given this reality for black males in the city of Boston, again,
it's
a pretty powerful message.
It's a tough ruling by the court, and I know that the district attorney was going to go and get some clarity on it, and we haven't gotten the clarity on exactly what that means. It puts a disadvantage to police officers. It puts a disadvantage to communities in some cases. Where somebody might be a suspect in something.
You said in response you were considering what further step. There's no step you can take.
No, I think
this is what it is.
The district attorney is looking for clarification on the ruling.
You know, speaking of race, to your credit, by the way, virtually everywhere you go, I know you talk about the importance of diversity and that sort of thing. This Boston Latin nightmare, Carmen Ortiz, U.S. Attorney, says the civil rights violation, racial slur to a young black student, and a threat to lynch her with a electrical cord. Subsequently, and also some other troubling racial incidents. I know you and the interim headmaster and the superintendent say we're moving ahead to reform that. Can you say with confidence that there isn't that sort of environment in any other schools in Boston where young kids of color are really being terrorized and leadership is basically ignoring it?
Well, actually, when this was brought to my attention last year in the office, it happened the year before that. I was upset and concerned about that. We started to look at other schools, see what the policies and procedures were. We put some policies and procedures in place after what happened in Latin School, and some recommendations by the U.S. Attorney's Office, we're incorporating them into what we're doing. No kid, no child, no young person should have to go to school and feeling any type of intimidation, race intimidation, gender intimidation, or just bullying in general. So we have to make sure that doesn't happen. I feel comfortable today that we certainly have had many conversations across the district, and we've worked on this. Has it happened in the past? I'm sure it has. And moving forward, we have to make sure we take swift action on it and don't let it linger on for a year and a half.
BRA is no longer the BRA. In 30 seconds, why does the average person care about the name change?
I think the average person won't care. I think the people that are involved in development and the people that are involved in community processes will. We're really looking at how do we deliver services, how do we have meetings in the neighborhood a lot different. Right now at the BRA meeting, somebody sits at the front, they talk about development, they tell you to send a letter in 90 days and we'll make changes. This is really interacting with the community, and we're going to be going out talking to the community, getting feedback on how we should change the process.
Last question, and by the way, the most emailed question when people heard you were coming. Story in the Globe the other day saying that despite, they didn't say this, despite what people like Marty Walsh say and the governor say, there's no proof that marijuana is a gateway drug to more serious drugs. That help move you a little bit?
No. Go talk to an intake counselor in any treatment facility and ask them, 9 out of 10 people that go into those facilities with a drug addiction, what they check off was their beginning drug, and they're going to check off marijuana.
But they say correlation, not causation. Does that crack your mind open a little or no?
No, unfortunately
it doesn't?
No.
I'll tell them. Nice to see you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, pleasure to see you.